All right. Happy Friday, everyone. And we are back with another episode of Learning Tech Talks, where we're exploring the landscape of learning tech while cutting through the fluff to help you do digital learning right. So today I brought back my friend, Michael Ioffe. He's the co-founder of Arist, which is a text messaging platform simplifying learning down to 1,200 characters a day. And we're going to be talking about how the platform's evolved since we talked last November and how they're using their capabilities to help people amidst the COVID-19 crisis right now. So if you're joining us live, go ahead, give us a thumbs up, share the post, tag in somebody who'd benefit for the conversation while we're getting things rolling here. And while you're at it, let us know where you're joining from in the comments. So Michael, I'm joining from the ever beautiful Waukesha, Wisconsin, as always. Michael, let us know where are you today?
I'm currently in Portland, Oregon, which is also super beautiful. Yeah, it's great here.
Yeah. Okay. Is it raining?
No, actually, it's been like 70 and sunny for the past 2 weeks. It's
all right.
pretty sweet.
It is not that warm here. We had a couple warm days like that, and then we got some snow. So I'm looking forward to it coming back to some warm weather. But okay, so question of the week. All right, you've had some time to think about this, and so this week's question is: with everything going on, there's a lot of reasons to be overwhelmed by negativity or things not going well. But if you're really looking, I personally believe there's always there's always glimmers of light in the darkness. And so the question for this week is, what is one thing that made you laugh this week? And tell the story a little bit. And for those of you watching and tuning in, comment in your bright spots too. So let's hear it, Michael.
Sure thing. So for my sister's birthday about like a month ago, I ended up buying her like a 5'2" inflatable dinosaur. Because it was like $20 on Amazon, and I was like, what the hell? And so what ended up happening is the quarantine, and so we ended up taking the inflatable dinosaur out on a walk in our neighborhood, and people's reactions were just like, what is going on? Like, why is there a dinosaur walking around? And so that was
okay. So hang on, I gotta ask. So is this? Yeah. Was it just like an inflatable toy and you were like holding its hand walking through it, or was it the inflatable T-Rex thing?
It was like the massive inflatable T-Rex. Yeah. And we made a leash for it, and like we just took it on a walk. Okay. And yeah, it was a good time.
Okay. So by the way, don't get rid of that thing. I have one. And
no way. Oh my God.
Oh yes. I love my inflatable T-Rex.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wore it. The last time I wore it was trick-or-treating with the kids. And it's one of those things that's just fun to wear because it's hilarious, arms and no, okay. All right. That one's pretty good. I like that. Okay. So you made a bright spot out of a potentially dark moment of not being able to do a birthday party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So here's mine. So last Friday, when I was talking with Charles Smith from Amplifier, we were talking about kind of this whole cognitive science and neuroscience behind learning. And anyway, the question of the week that time was, what's one thing you thought you knew that you ended up discovering you didn't know at all? And so I shared that the one for me was at the end of Queen's We Are the Champions, I swore it ended with "of the world," and it doesn't. It just ends with "champions," and then it stops. And for me, that was just like mind blown moment for me. So anyway, I'd shared that. And so a couple days later, Alexander Salas, and Alexander, if you're listening, you'll get a kick out of this. He messages me and he says, listen to the podcast, and he sent a screenshot. He had done a similar thing to me where he'd like, no way, I have to look this up. And so he looked it up. And to me, it made me smile and laugh for two reasons. First of all, one, it was hilarious to me. He had the same reaction I did. And the other thing was, you never really know who's listening or watching this stuff. So when people reach out and tell you, you're like, that's cool. Like, it's cool that you walked away with something. But the other thing that, to me, from a learning standpoint, if we want to relate this back to learning, was the conversation we had that week was the importance of pushing people into this like optimal zone of kind of the stress response, right? You need to challenge people's thinking, because if it's boring or just, whatever, they don't move into that. And so the fact that we had highlighted just how perfectly that was, I guarantee Alexander will never forget that Queen does not end of the world. Neither will I. And so it was just one of those, like, it made me chuckle. And honestly, throughout the week, every time it pops up in my LinkedIn messages, I still laugh about it. So
That is awesome.
not quite as cool as the inflatable T-Rex. Maybe I'll have to do an episode in mine, or maybe we both can when we talk again. That might be
sounds
epic.
awesome. That'd be great. The dinosaur episode. Yeah.
That would be epic. Yeah, we'll go prehistoric.
That's right.
All right. Well, so let's transition over back to the learning technology piece. So you co-founded Arist. For people who haven't seen our November episode, let's talk a little bit about what it is, right? We say text messaging learning, but just at a high level, highlight, what is Arist when people ask you?
Sure thing. Yeah. So I think it's best if I start with just a super quick story.
Yeah.
So my background is in the nonprofit space. Before starting Aris, I used to run a nonprofit called tile.org,
Okay.
which has about 450 locations in 50 countries. And one of our most successful locations was in the war zone in Yemen. And I couldn't understand why we were getting more students to come to our events in Yemen than our events in Portland or New York or Milwaukee. And what we found was that students in Yemen had limited access to the internet. So they couldn't take any of these amazing online resources that we're so used to here in the US. And their educational system had been broken for over 4 years. So they had, these live events that we were hosting were the only educational resources they had access to.
Okay.
And so I very quickly started realizing that, I sort of became obsessed with this problem of how do you deliver more educational content to students in Yemen. And what we eventually figured out was that if we could harness text messages to deliver educational content, we can make learning dramatically more accessible.
Okay.
So we ended up developing a text message course model with a few professors from USC and Babson. And a text message course is just 1,200 characters, so about 2 screen lengths worth of text, sent along with an image and then an assessment every single day over the course of 5 to 30 days. So in about 30 days, we can cover a full semester-long college course, or a really, really comprehensive leadership development or harassment prevention course. And so, we were initially like the goal of Aris was just to deliver learning. And okay, cool. I think my internet might have.
No, yeah, you'll fade in and out every once in a while. It's okay. People
Okay,
understand.
Sweet. Yeah. So our initial goal was to just deliver learning in conflict zones, which we continue to do to this day. But a university in the Boston area reached out to us after hearing about some of these experiments we were running and said, "Hey, this would be great for corporate L&D." And we're all college students, so we were like, "What the hell is corporate L&D?" And
I had
so
a similar reaction as an 8th grade math teacher. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so we started realizing that along with being super accessible, text message courses, because they're based off a lot of behavioral science research from Stanford and UPenn, could be really, really accessible and really effective for learning in other places, right? For compliance training, for onboarding, for all of these different use cases, both to make learning simpler and more frictionless, but also to make learning actually effective. And today we've had completion and satisfaction rates of over 90% for our courses, which has been pretty great. So that's like a super quick summary.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I want to kind of jump on that I'm curious. So you talked about, right, compressing a semester long class into a 30-day text message course. And you had the backing of a college. I have to imagine that was kind of a disruptive position, right? To say, hey, you know what? We can take this, and this is how you traditionally do it in the academic sense. We're going to do it differently, and it's going to look like this. Like, how did that go over?
Yeah, there was a whole lot of skepticism. I mean, Babson, I have to give credit to Babson. Babson is an incredibly innovative institution. They've been on the bleeding edge of a lot of digital learning. But for them, they were like text messages, come on, like that's just the worst idea we've ever heard. And I think one of the key realizations that we had in our discussions with professors is that so much of learning is, especially if you're given an hour and a half worth of class time, professors have to fill up that hour and a half. Yes. So even if the subject for that class is, could be explained really, really succinctly in a paragraph, they have to fill up that class with exercises and activities and conversations, many of which, sort of deviate from the essence of the learning. And if you think about it, learning really is, you read something or learn about a concept or watch something. and then you think about it, reflect on it, and act. And so that like read, reflect, act model can be simulated really effectively in a text message.
Okay. Okay. Well, what's funny is talking about so really what you're talking about, you're trimming the fat out, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's really what it is. And a relatable experience I think going on right now that I can speak firsthand to is, you look at what's going on right now. One of the big disruptions with COVID right now is all these kids are at home, right?
yeah,
And so, my wife is a superwoman. She's been amazing, with our kids. And one of the things she's done, she's homeschooled even before COVID hit, with our oldest. And one of the things that was she saw, and she's been trying to help parents through this, is as she was watching a lot of these parents go, how do I spend 8 hours a day, in school with my kids? Because normally they go in at 7 or 8 and they don't get home till 4. And I'm going nuts doing this. I'm getting done in 2 hours. And it's like, well, because you're trimming all that fat out, right?
right,
You're trimming all that fat out. You're just focusing on this and all the filler activity. When you cut that out, it's so much more efficient to be able to go through that exercise. So it's been interesting. I mean, that's kind of a real-time example of another way that we see this where you might go, well, that's not possible. You can't
right, yeah,
possibly deliver this much content, in this way. And it's like, well, actually you can if you cut it down to what it really is.
yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
Interesting. So what other, I mean, you've been doing this now for a bit, right? You're a startup, but you've been doing this now for a bit. What are some of the other reactions or responses that people, I mean, I'm sure one of them is really text messaging. Like there's no way we can deliver that level of content. Are there other big ones that you've had to overcome over the past few months?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the natural skepticism with text messages is huge, and I think privacy is also a huge issue.
Okay.
So with Aris, the first reaction that we usually get is like, well, my employees don't have company phones,
Okay.
and our reaction is like, that's great, because we're designed to very very compliantly and safely send messages directly to your employees' personal phones. And then there's always the reaction of like, okay, well, employees would never want to receive their corporate training via text message to their personal phones. And what we find is that that's actually never been the case.
Really?
We've yeah, like Aris is now being used by over a dozen Fortune 500 companies and a number of leading universities, and we've never had an employee opt out of using Aris on their personal phones. And I think which I think is counterintuitive to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason is that just the convenience of being able to learn over when you're on the subway, or when you have a break. For example, yesterday I finished work, and I was like, oh, I have like 5 minutes before my next meeting, and I took out my phone and just read a few of my Aris texts. And the convenience of being able to learn like that ends up being a huge a huge plus for a lot of employees. So I think these traditional assumptions that we have about employees only want to interact with the workplace from 9 to 5 and only want to do so on a company owned laptop or on a company owned phone. I think that's becoming less and less true, especially for millennials and Gen Z.
Okay. Okay. Well, and I think to me that makes sense. As you think about it, the lines between work and outside of work are very much blurring. And in some cases, it's almost more of an inconvenience to have to. I mean, I think of, people talk about they carry around a company phone in their personal, and it's honestly a pain. They're like,
Yeah,
which one
yeah,
do I take with me and things like that. So I can see where, especially as the newer generations are coming in and are less dividing work and personal life in such a black and white way. You've had to work through that. So how do you deal with that though? Because I mean, in L&D in general,
yeah.
there's no shortage of that, right? I've been running this show for a bit. I've been trying to push, tech and thinking differently about learning, and there's no shortage of this. Nope, can't do it. Like that won't work because no reason really other than I don't think it will work based on these assumptions. So how have you worked with people through that?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I think a few ways. The first one is just going straight to the employees and getting employee feedback.
Okay.
We find that employees, once they try a course, are often our greatest advocates. They're like, yes, this is how I want to learn. And so that's been one way of doing it. I think something that we've been sort of lucky about, is the fact that our tool is often filling pressing needs or pressing gaps, right? So for example, right now with COVID-19, a lot of employers are realizing that, oh, like my employees don't actually have a strong internet connection at home. or my employees, don't even have a laptop that they can take home and learn from. And so, Aris is currently the only way to deliver learning content if your employee is smartphone dependent or doesn't have an internet connection, because we do it compliantly over your phone. And so, I think for a lot of organizations, they've been like, okay, we have to provide some level of learning to our employees, so we might as well do this. And after that, the feedback is always positive, and so then really innovative learning organizations can end up scaling from there.
Okay. Okay. So what kind of challenges, and we talked a little bit about this before coming on, is as you were approaching and moving into the enterprise space,
Right.
some bumps along the way, right? I mean, you you found out some of these things. Let's talk a little bit about some of the learnings that you had with that.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, right now we're facing one of the biggest crises in learning, maybe that we've had in the past few decades. And something that our team has been amazed by is the fact that you know a lot of really innovative solutions that could fix a lot of the very sudden problems that we're having are not getting pushed along or getting approval by tech teams. And part of that is a genuine concern for privacy. But at the same time, when schools and universities and companies have problems tomorrow, they can't, or organizations can't wait for a 3 to 12 month approval process. And so I think that that's been one of the biggest barriers that we face is, our tool is really designed to serve immediate needs. And, those immediate needs oftentimes come and go by the time that we're done with an approval process.
Yeah.
And so that's been a challenge. And in general, the pace of decision making on the enterprise level can sometimes be, be difficult.
Can be interesting. Yeah.
I'm 21, so I'm used to everything happening like super quickly, and an approval process that takes up like 5% of my life, right, or 10% of my life, is not something that I want to spend time doing. So we've ended up moving to a super decentralized model for getting Aris to the people who need it most.
Okay.
And so now anybody can go to Aris.co and essentially buy a $50 subscription for their employees
Okay.
without ever having to go through an approval process. It's
Yeah.
just, our goal is to make setting up an Aris account and setting up, a text message course as easy as setting up a Slack account or setting up a Twitter account.
Okay. Okay. Well, and that was right. This and COVID-19, and again, we're not going to make this a COVID-19 episode, but in many ways, it caught a lot of people off guard, right? And there were a lot of assumptions that companies had, like you said, about their employees, about the way work was done, about some of this stuff that suddenly they were pressed with, oh, turns out that isn't actually how it works. And the response time is critical right now. And
Right.
I think that's something that, I can say for my peers, the people that I work with, there are a lot of times we're struggling with this, where it's like, okay, we have a need, we need to meet it. We don't have 18 months to go through an RFP enterprise implementation, because by the time that implementation is done, not that it's not going to be valuable once it's done, but we've missed our window of opportunity. So I think it's interesting that you've been able to pivot the platform a little bit. Not that you're moving away from what that is, but to be able to say, listen, we recognize what the need is, and so we've adjusted. We've adjusted to kind of meet this immediate need to help people who need to move quickly.
Yeah. And I think for us, one of the craziest things has been that you know a lot of learning organizations that we've worked with in light of this sudden shift. We're like, okay, great, we're going to take all of our classroom training, right, and then just record it, and that's going to be our digital learning. And I think that this is a really unique opportunity for digital learning teams to adopt completely new forms of digital learning that may be really impactful, and that may be better suited to employees working at home. And so the tendency to just record 25 hours of video courses and make it available to your employees at home is, I don't know if it's the right move, but
Okay. Okay. Got it. So here's the other one though. So with everything going on right now, there is sometimes a natural tendency, and I've seen it. I've been helping others, and myself have been trying to do a little bit of preventing firefighting, right? Which
Yeah.
which is what can happen. Everybody's home. There are some assumptions that, well, now people are home. What else do they want to do other than corporate learning? And so let's push all this stuff out to everybody, which not necessarily all bad, but at the same time, a little bit tone deaf. And at the other thing is sometimes we overvalue the content that we have. We assume that the content we have is super important. So when you've been working with some of these folks and saying, hey, you know, crisis or not, you have this need, you want to push it to people in a different way, you want to get it out to them. How do you help them evaluate, that, so you don't just end up with 873 text message
Right.
threads of different stuff and people are just like, this is too much. Like now I feel like it's spam.
Right, right. Yeah. So what we find is that when there is a significant mindset shift when writing a text message course. Like
Okay.
you have to focus entirely on on reducing word count instead of increasing word count or increasing video length. And so we find that once people are trained in that mindset, which usually just takes a few conversations and then a few stabs at making a text message course, people get the hang of it very very quickly. People tend to identify very quickly, like, oh yeah, like this entire 3 hour long presentation really is about these three very specific points, right?
Yeah.
And those are, I mean, that's what, as a learner, that's what you want to know. You want to know what are the three specific points and how can I take action on them. And I mean, it's interesting. If we step back for a second, what we're seeing right now is, I've done lots of learning over the past few weeks, not through Zoom, right? Most of the learning that I've had has been through Twitter or through TikTok, right? Of all things, because on TikTok,
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that one, by the way, but keep
okay,
going.
yeah, for sure, for sure. It's no, but on TikTok, you have a lot of really amazing science teachers, for example, who have adapted their coursework to fit this really, really short medium. So I suck at chemistry. I've always sucked at chemistry, right? But I've learned so much chemistry over the past like week because of this one dude who makes science videos on TikTok, right? And they're a minute long. They go straight to the point and explain really, really complex chemistry concepts in depth, and I love it. And I think these mediums that we learn a lot from, but we don't acknowledge that we learn a lot from, have a really meaningful place in the corporate learning landscape.
Well, and so I have a comment and then I have to ask about TikTok. Okay.
Okay, sweet.
So the first one is this. I think this is something that we've got a ways to go yet. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn, at least on the practitioner side, which is
Mhm.
sometimes the assumption that our technology or the way we think things should be delivered is the best is a gross misassumption in terms of how it actually happens, right? I mean, people are learning all the time. I think that's one of my issues when I hear let's build a learning culture. It's like you have a learning culture whether you acknowledge it or not. Your employees are learning. They might just not be learning the way you think they should be learning or the way you're trying to push them to learn. But it's happening. And so I think it's interesting, you talk about this in terms of integrating into some of these other ways that, hey, this is happening. How do we integrate into that versus try and always, not that there isn't a place to do it, but instead of always saying, well, we need to come up with the new tool or the new thing that people are going to use to learn because maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Okay, so TikTok.
Yeah.
I have to know because right, I hear about it and I'm like, I don't get it. Is it just music? What is TikTok?
Yeah, sure. So TikTok is essentially just, at its essence, it's a pretty simple tool for creating and sharing, like 15-second to minute long videos.
Okay, so you've
Uh,
got you got a time cap.
you have a time cap, and you can, I think one of like the power of TikTok is that unlike Instagram, where you can post short videos but you can't edit them, TikTok has a really, really great video editing tool and a really, really good algorithm for filtering content. And so what that means is that if you're, a science teacher from like Bloomington, Minnesota, for example, you can make really, really high quality videos entirely using your phone.
Okay.
And then those videos, because of TikTok's algorithm, can reach millions and millions of students.
Okay.
And so I think it has. I think that's just one indication. That and Twitter as well. I've learned so much from Twitter threads over the past few weeks. Those are both great indications that micro learning, like really, really micro learning, like nano learning, maybe even, um, you know, ends up having really, really meaningful outcomes in learners, both Gen Z and millennials, but also we find like people in their 50s, 60s, even 70s.
Okay. Okay. Nano learning. You've now created a new buzzword in the L&D space, Michael.
Amazing.
There you
That's all
go.
I hope to do. So
You can retire. You've
I'm
made it.
done. Yeah.
You've
Great.
made it. Okay. All right. So nano. Okay. Well, no, that's interesting. And what's interesting about it, whether you're talking about TikTok, whether you're talking about Aris, whether you're talking about Twitter, any of these things, and having done this with my teams in the past, it actually is a really good exercise to force people through compressing things, right? And saying, okay, and this was an exercise that I've ran with teams in the past where it's like, do this, structure this content. Now cut it in half.
Right.
Now cut it in half again.
Yeah.
Right. And it's painful. You watch people do it and it's like,
oh yeah,
I can't. This is all so important. You're like, well, you have to, like, you just figure out what, and then they do it, and then they do it again. And it is possible, but it takes some real critical thought, which I think is something that's important for L&D professionals, right? I mean, we're supposed to be experts at this. That is the profession we are in, is instructional architecture, and how do we actually do this well? And I think tools like this give us the capability to practice it and hopefully democratize it so we don't have to be the bottleneck for it.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So with that one, then I'm going to jump into two different areas. So with what you're doing now, right? So you have this text messaging platform. You're democratizing this. You're helping people kind of go through this exercise of, hey, let's get this content. Let's get it in its simplest form. Let's deliver it to people in the most simple way possible, honestly.
Right.
How do you do that with, or how do you work with, do you only work with L&D people? Are you working with subject matter experts? What's kind of the gamut of folks who you work with to do this?
Sure. Yeah. So our initial focus was primarily L&D folks. And I think L&D was a natural starting place because there's a lot of content, a lot of employees that need to receive learning in a lot of different types of ways. And also, we were greatly inspired by Laszlo Bock, who's said, learn better, learn less, right? And so we really took that to heart. Now what we're seeing is Aris is being used by everybody from K through 12 teachers all across the U.S. In the past 2 weeks, we've just seen a remarkable influx in people from all types of backgrounds using Aris. And it's been cool because we've been able to see what the limit of the medium is. There's also, hold on, I think somebody's mowing their yard. Can you just 1 second? Okay, sweet. There we go.
We'll get a lawnmower in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's at home; they have to do something, So
got to do something.
That's right. So it's been cool because we've been able to really see what the limit of the platform is. Like one instructional designer at Amazon, a guy named Ian Crook, he just made he made a Ghostbusters onboarding using Aris.
Okay.
And it's awesome. Like every single day I get my Ghostbusters texts, and I'm like, cool. I'm part of the team now. I'm getting onboarded to becoming a Ghostbuster. So it's been really, really amazing to see the limitations of the platform and what people are able to do with it when given that constraint. And much like I think learning architects, I'm a huge architecture buff, right? So much like actual architects, architects thrive when they have to work with limited conditions, right? Like a difficult lot or a difficult landscape. Yeah. The same thing is true for learning architects, right?
Yep. Well, and I think the same is true in a lot of things, right? When we're pressured to think with constraints, it actually pushes us to think differently, which is, one of your Ghostbusters onboarding analogy is a good one. I think, as I look at some of the things going on right now, one of the other bright spots I see amidst everything going on is creativity is at an all-time high. Yeah. Because it has to be. I mean, the number of videos I see of people doing insane, crazy, fun things where you're like, they never would have done that before because they weren't forced to. They weren't pushed into a thing. And not that you ever want to say, hey, this is a good thing, but it's been interesting to watch as people challenge the whole, well, we can't do that, or that won't be allowed here. So with the current situation, are you seeing people taking more risks? Are they doing things differently than even maybe you saw before, where they were doing text messaging, but it was kind of force fitting things from one thing to another, and now they're kind of stepping outside?
Yeah, so it's been interesting. It's been a range. I think it depends strongly on the learning culture of the
Okay.
organization. So one company that we spoke to in November, and then they were like, you know what, like, and they were pretty slow at decision making. Reached out to us out of the blue and was like, we need this right now. We were like, cool, all right, let's let's get you set up.
Okay.
And so that's been interesting. Another company that we talked to was like, we really did not have any use for this like 3 months ago, but the use cases are very very clear now.
Okay.
So that's it's been interesting seeing that transition with some learning teams. And then with other learning teams, they've that are already using Aris, they've pivoted to either doing more video based training, or some organizations have sort of hibernated their training entirely. Have sort of pulled back and taken this opportunity, which I think
Yeah.
in many ways is both a good and a bad thing. I think taking using this time to step back and really reevaluate your learning organization and what you're trying to accomplish. I think in many ways that's a really really great thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's an important topic to talk about right now. And I'm kind of watching the comments here off to the side because I think this is something that is important to think about. It goes back to what we were talking earlier, where there is to some degree this assumption, well, people are home, people are doing things, let's push them learning, which I think is a little tone deaf because people are home with kids now and they may be scrambling to figure out how to work in this new world, and the emotional mental strain of just the realities of things. If you look at the neuroscience behind emotions and learning, like right when people are
Yeah,
stressed and have things, it's hard to actually get them to move forward. So we have to be careful how we do that. But at the same time, I've seen pockets where people are hungry for learning. And if anything, this has pushed people to a place where they're saying, I'm struggling or recognizing what my skills are and I want to improve, right? I
yeah, yeah,
recognize that maybe everything I thought about my own capabilities are not what they are. And so it is this balancing act of helping organizations understand, how do you help continue development? I don't think the shutting down thing is the right move right now. I don't.
yeah,
I think people
yeah.
they need to feel connected. I think they need to feel like they're being invested in and developed. I think we need to be careful about how we do it, but I think there's definitely need. So it's cool to hear that you're kind of enabling people in this moment where they need it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so on another topic with this, let's talk about some of the things related to the situation. I know you've been developing a lot of content, uh, t- and democratizing, really just putting it out there. Talk to me a little bit about how you've been getting involved in that to kind of help the situation.
sure thing. Yeah. So yeah, what we found is that very very quickly, like our school shut down. I think March 12th, and so within 2 or 3 days, we started realizing that a lot of teachers, because we were intimately familiar with the fact that most students and many students and many employees around the world don't have access to the internet, and so we instantly made our platform completely free and all teachers as well. So now anybody can go to Aris if they're a teacher and instantly create an Aris classroom and start creating content for their students. So we jumped into action really quickly there, and over the past I think over the past like 2 weeks we've had over 50 nonprofits reach out to us
Okay.
and get started using the platform for everything from delivering COVID-19 training. We helped develop a COVID-19 course for refugees in the Naki Valley refugee camp in Uganda, where there's 70 to 90,000 refugees with limited access to the internet, but everybody has a phone and everybody has WhatsApp. And so we've seen a lot of use cases of Aris being used for really phenomenal impact work that we've been thrilled to support. So I think that's probably been the biggest shift in terms of us being able to step into action. And again, it's been really really amazing to see what people can create. I think for a lot of old school trainers, this is their first time being forced to do digital. I spoke to
You're it is.
yeah. I spoke to this great lady at a conference, I think like 2 or 3 months ago, and she saw Eris and she was like, "This is the worst thing ever," and I was like. Right? You know,
And the feedback.
and she was like, I was like, I really appreciate the candidness, and she was like, yeah, you know, like I like, you know, like nothing will ever be in-person training. And I'm like, I'm in agreement. You know, this is designed to supplement or replace it when you can't have in-person training. And she was like, yeah, you know, whatever. And then she reached out to us last week, and she was like, I can't do any in-person training anymore. And I'm like, I know it sucks, but like, you know, you have to adapt. And so she's actually now using Aris to deliver courses, which has been cool. But
Okay.
but it's that transition and just the ability to help you know, help deliver learning content in a way that's somewhat differentiated from video or everything else digital
Yeah.
that we're used to. You know, we've been really thrilled to be in a position to help.
Okay. Interesting. It's always fun when things come full circle, right? When you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
I've had my fair share of those where it's like, this is a terrible idea, or, you know, you won't be able to do that. And you're like, whatever, I'm going to do it anyway. And then
right, right.
the same people come back. It's always a little satisfying when they come back and go,
A little bit, yeah,
there's a little bit of
a
satisfaction.
little bit of satisfaction.
There
Yeah,
is,
without a doubt.
or maybe a lot. That's okay.
Right.
You know, it's fine. You know, it's so on that topic, you know, one of the things I think that a lot of people are navigating right now, right, is this whole digital versus in person.
Right.
And so I think this is something that's worth digging into a little bit, because I have been in a number of conversations where there's almost a little bit of a threat right now, right? You know, people are going, well, we're going digital because we have to. And there's some folks that are holding on, hoping that we'll bounce back to the way things are done. And you know, I think one of the things that's been interesting about this is, you know, seeing platforms like Arist, like a lot of these other platforms that are creating digital content in a meaningful way. I personally have not seen that as a threat to the in-person thing. I don't really distinguish in-person and virtual. To me, it's live, right?
Yeah.
It's live versus async. And so, you know, I don't necessarily see this digital content as a threat to synchronous experiences, because the reality is the buck doesn't stop there. It's and
Yeah.
if in fact, I would say asynchronous is the absolute, or sorry, synchronous is the absolute worst medium for delivering content. In my
Yeah.
opinion, it is the worst way you can put content out there, because of the fact, well, we could list reasons why. But so have you seen people completely shifting to this digital, or are they still doing it and finding ways to still keep that human component in the loop?
Yeah, yeah. Again, so I think that there's two really interesting things there. One is what we define as a human component,
Okay.
right? So if your learning organization defines a human component as, you know, a face on a screen, then you know, then what happens is you develop a ton of face on screen video content, right?
Yes.
And you know, and I think that this dovetails with sort of the fact that within the next decade, we're going to have a huge shift in how the workplace is going to look,
Yeah.
right? I'm
We're not
21.
bouncing back. I was in a
Yeah,
conversation
yeah, yeah.
with somebody the other day. I'm like, we won't bounce back. In fact, bouncing back would be the worst thing we could do. We're going to bounce forward.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, like within the next decade, I think something like 30 or 40% of the workforce is going to be Gen Z, right?
Yep.
And between Gen Z and millennials, they're gonna make up, I think, like 80% of the workforce, which means that how you define, and for us, we define human interaction very, very differently,
Yes.
right? We define human interaction as sending a text, right? Which is why we think that you know, our model, and why the research indicates that our model works well.
Yeah.
It's because you know, we learn so much from conversations, but for us, those conversations just happen to happen over text message more than in person, right? Especially now. And so if we can harness the same things that make a conversation great, right? And the same attributes that make us help us learn a lot from conversations, and put that into digital learning, you know, I think we can go a long way in advancing and in bouncing forward effectively. So I think that that's sort of one component of, you know, we really have to think about what is it that we care about, and what, you know, what type of research do we want to use, right? Do we want to use learning research that was made in the 80s, or cutting edge learning research that indicates that, you know, going smaller is probably more effective, right?
Yeah.
And meeting people where they're at, and being asynchronous and giving people complete flexibility is more effective. And I think that's a decision that individual learning organizations will have to make.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, thankfully we're forward. and decide to say, we're gonna use this opportunity to really, really future-proof our organization.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, and I think going to your comment about leveraging research from the 80s, things like that, where it's like there are definitely things, right? You look back at some of these things, and it's about decrypting what are the timeless things, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
micro learning's not new; it's a new word for it. Nano
Yeah,
learning might be new, though. That's new, and you can coin that now. But right, some of these things are not new concepts. We've always known that data dumping on people is a terrible way to approach things. We've
right.
known, some of the cognitive science behind, how to actually push people into the right zone of proximal development, things like that. But I think what has changed, and this is one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking about, is the ways in which we execute that has changed dramatically. So if you're looking at some of this historic research, there are still principles you can take from that. But what I don't think we've always done a good job of is say, okay, if that's at the core, the principle, what we know works or how this works, how could we be delivering that different today? Because in the 80s, we didn't have text messaging. We didn't
Yeah.
have the internet. We didn't have things like that that actually broke the rules about, well, this is how that has to be done. So it is interesting to watch, some of these emerging platforms, yours being one of them, that is taking something and applying it in a different way.
Yeah, well, and I'll make, I think it'd be interesting to make this prediction. I don't know if this is accurate, but I would wager, I will make a bet that this is the case. I would not be surprised if within the next decade we have a TikTok for work, a version of TikTok for work where where executives can make really, really short form videos that teach employees about certain key concepts of the business. I think that I think we're going to move. I think within the next decade or so, we're going to keep a lot of old principles, but just adapt them into really, really new tools and platforms, many of which I think don't even exist yet. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting decade for learning.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it continues to evolve, which is one of the challenges, is why we have this show, is that
Yeah,
it's changing at such a pace. For a lot of folks, it's like, I can't even keep up with this. Like
yeah, yeah.
we're still plugging things into a slide by slide e-learning, and you're talking about, CEOs making TikTok videos
Right.
like
Yeah,
here so
exactly.
far. And it's like, well, right. And maybe you're not there in the journey, but that doesn't mean you can't start on the journey, and kind of start where you are.
Yeah, yeah.
So from a capability standpoint, I do want to talk about this a little bit, because when we had talked, platform was new, and I know that one of the big things with platforms, and it's part of the reason I bring people back, is that they don't just stay where they were. So the
Right.
platform
Yeah.
that was what it was 6 months or a year ago is not the platform that it is today. So what lessons have you learned from people about, hey, it'd be cool if it did this? Or are there things you tried that you went, all right, we'll add this, and then you realize, like, oh, well, no, that didn't go so well.
Yeah, yeah, sure thing. So I think we've been super lucky in this sense. So we get tons of user feedback, and because giving feedback to Aris is as easy as texting back. That feedback is frictionless
Okay.
and continuous. So yeah, we've been lucky in the sense that we haven't made too many missteps in terms of platform development. I think one,
For you.
yeah, we've been
Good for
super
you.
lucky. We've been really, really lucky. I think a few things that we've been obsessed with improving. We're generally obsessed with this concept of frictionlessness,
Okay.
right? And making learning as frictionless as possible. And so for us, we've spent the past 3 months just reducing the number of clicks that it takes
Okay.
to create a course, and reducing the number of clicks that it takes to get started taking a course as well. And I think you know our investors in particular have been, I think, at a certain point, we're a little bit concerned about the fact that we were spending so much time and money reducing clicks,
Okay.
because it's sort of a weird obsession to have. But I think it's paid off for us in the sense that being able, I think people are usually just blown away by the fact that you can go to the Aris website, and within a matter of like 7 or 8 clicks, you can make a course, right, and publish a course, which is something that's much harder to do with a lot of other platforms. And then signing up for a course, it takes 3 or 4 clicks,
Okay.
uh, and so I think that's been
So
sort of
you've
our
reduced and this is on the design side, right? For
yeah,
the
yeah.
developer, you've reduced the friction for a developer.
Yeah, exactly. Reduce the friction for, yeah, both the developer and also for the employee taking the course.
Okay.
And our goal, we're obsessed with design, and so for us, um, that's the greatest number of resources. I think the other thing that there was a lot of demand for, was using Aris for coaching, right?
Okay.
Which we've been able to fulfill by having automated responses. And so now you can build in really, really intricate automated like response streams into text message courses, which is cool because you can build in, sort of a chatbot like functionality asynchronously, in a really, really easy way.
Okay. So talk about, I'm curious about that. So in terms of reducing the friction piece, I think
Yeah,
that's an important one and probably a smart play. I think there's a lot of things out there where the barrier to entry is user experience on,
yeah,
and I think sometimes where I see it go south is people invest on the user experience on one side but not the other, right? They
right.
create an extraordinary end user experience, but it is a colossal train wreck on the developer or on the administration side. And so when you go that path, maybe the learner loves it, but the
Yeah,
administrator hates it. And so there's no desire to really make it work. And where it works well is when it works well as on the administration author side and on the end user side. So that to me was a smart play. And it sounds like that one's paying off on this response piece, because that was one functionality that wasn't there last time we talked. We talked about the fact that, hey, do people get to interact back with this thing? Tell me a little bit more about how that works in terms of the interaction. Is this like you quiz questions and they're responding? Is it dynamic response? How's that working?
sure thing. Yeah. So we've built in three response types. So open-ended responses. So question, how are you feeling today? Multiple choice responses, which are, like answer A, B, C, or D from a list of options, and then the system will text you back really, really detailed feedback based on your response, and we'll adjust the course stream from there. And then short answer questions as well. So like when was George Washington born, stuff like that. And so the great thing is that for users, texting back is super, super easy. I mean, it's as easy as texting back. Um,
Makes sense.
and the great thing is for something like compliance, we're tracking whether or not users actually understand what's going on.
Okay.
Um, Being able to indicate that yes, I understood my safety training as easy as like texting back a letter, ends up dramatically increasing the rates of people finishing their compliance training and successfully completing it.
Okay.
One organization that we were working with had safety compliance training rate, even though this is something that I didn't really understand. They had a mandatory compliance training that only 60% of people completed.
Oh, I
Uh,
understand how that happens.
yeah, yeah. So to me, I was like, but it's mandatory. How does that work? And I was like, cool. But um,
Mm.
and so we were able to get their compliance training completion rates up to like 95, 96%,
Okay.
um, which was pretty
So
sweet
you
because
almost made it mandatory,
almost made it mandatory. I know, yeah.
except for the 5%. They didn't, you know.
Yeah, like for those like 3-4% of users, like you're getting the email and you're seeing the email to complete this. Like it takes you like 4 clicks to do it. Like what's like are you just like, yeah, like I'm just not gonna do my compliance training? I'm like I'm gonna stick it to the man. But yeah, so I don't know I don't know how we get that last 3-4% of users.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think the response functionality has been huge.
Okay.
We've also fully integrated WhatsApp, which I think has been really, really important. For huge multinational organizations, with employees in India or employees in Latin America, being able to reach their employees by WhatsApp is fantastic, and it makes I think it makes the employee company experience that much more personal, because employees are spending all of their time on WhatsApp anyways, and being able to send a company branded text that says, hey, we're X company, and here's just here's a nice reminder of what we do and why we care about you.
Okay.
Um, I think that goes a long way in making the employee experience really, really great.
Okay. Interesting. So with the you talked a little bit about, how did you say it's dynamically respond the course can dynamically respond based on their responses? So are you moving a little bit or exploring kind of the adaptive concept of let's change the experience based on the employee?
Yeah, we're starting to a little bit. I think long term that's and you know one of our university partners just designed probably like our first fully adaptive course, and it was awesome. It was super cool. And I think we're going to see more and more of that and build in more and more functionality for that adaptability.
Okay.
But again, our goal is still to make building a course as easy
So
as writing a text, right? And so that's something that level of simplicity is something that we never want to change.
okay. Okay. Well, and that's what that was what I was going to ask, because if you've ever played with, if when you start getting into adaptability, which starts at
Yeah,
its basics with branching,
right.
right? You open Pandora's box
Oh
like
yeah,
that, and suddenly something from a, hey, cool, I can create a quick text messaging class in 10 minutes, to, oh my gosh, what did I sign
yeah,
myself up for, is something. So I can see where that's a bit of a challenge to figure out how do you balance that while maintaining true to the original vision, which was, let's make it as easy as possible.
right.
Okay, interesting. So with that one, and I'm curious on the analytics side, as you're going into it, what are some of the things that people are finding, or they're pulling out of this, that maybe they weren't getting before, as they look at, um, hang on here, I'm looking at a question that came through. Eric, I'm not fully sure I understand your question, so maybe ask it again, and I'll bring it up into the conversation here in terms of bigger picture options for best practices for L&D. But talk a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of, like, what kind of information are you capturing? So people are responding back, right?
Right,
So that's
right.
that's a pretty big advancement from where it's been. Is now, one, it can dynamically shift. Two, people can kind of interact with this stuff. But also, how is that affecting the data that you're providing to organizations or the authors?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that we've seen is users are responding in ways that learning designers have never seen before,
Okay.
right? So we ran an ethics course with one of our clients, and like when you take an ethics course online, you like click through it, and it's not terribly exciting. You maybe like answer a few quick questions. What was mind blowing, I think, in this particular ethics course was that employees were texting back paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs explaining, how they felt about the ethical situation at their workplace, and giving tons of really, really great feedback that they simply weren't comfortable giving for some reason in a video environment or in a webinar environment, or even in a regular digital course environment. So that's been really, really, that's been really gratifying. Is that along with gathering, standard data like response rates, you can track whether or not your employees getting the course, engaging with the course, whether or not their answer accuracy rates are high, etc. We're also seeing that the level of engagement with e-learning and the level of authenticity that employees are responding with
Okay.
is something that a lot of our developers just haven't seen before. It lets them interact with the employees that they serve in a much more intimate way.
Okay. Okay. Well, that gets to two things. And Eric, I think this is actually going to address your question, that you were getting at, while at the same time talking about, this whole human side of it, right? Because what you're getting at is, this data is giving you more insight into your learner, which is,
Right.
to me,
Right.
invaluable, right? Because the more we can understand who our audience is at a personal level, the better we can deliver on what they actually need. And I
Yeah.
think this is where we're getting at. So Eric, what Eric was asking was, what are some of the giving employees options? To me, that's where what technology is unlocking in learning and development is the ability to truly personalize at a level that we have never been able to do before, right? I mean, that is something that, to understand where a learner's at, what their existing knowledge set is, what they know, what they don't know, what they think they know that they actually don't know, like the end of We Are the Champions, right? To be able to root that stuff out, but then also deliver a completely personalized experience that's human centric, is something that, it's ironic to me, but has always been the case, where technology is actually making learning more personal and more human than
Yeah.
it ever has before, which is one of the greatest ironies of it. As people are saying, oh, technology's moving us away from human-centered design, it's making us less connected. It's like, if anything, it's allowing us to do it at a scale and capability never before possible.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and I think we're going to see more and more and more of that, as because humans, we're so comfortable with just like texting, right? Or taking notes on our phone, or like all of these things that have become second nature to us. And I think being able to meet users where they're at, which is oftentimes on their phone,
Yeah.
is critical.
Oftentimes, like a lot
Yeah,
of time.
a lot of the time. Yeah, more than we'd like to admit. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, so one of the other things, if people are if they're curious about Arist, if they want to do it, what is the easiest way to get an experience with it, or try it out, or to test it for themselves?
Sure thing. Yeah, so we just launched the ability to create your own classroom and create your own course in seconds.
Okay.
So if people go to arist.co, that's arist.co, you can both try a sample course if you want to get a sense of what text message learning is like, and also go ahead and just jump into creating a course right away.
Okay.
And it's free. It takes seconds to set up, and our team is always here to help. So if you have any pressing learning needs, my email is just michael@aris.co. So
Which, by the way, the email platform you use is Superman. Everyone email I get from you has like Superman at the end of it, right?
oh yeah, it's, superhuman. Yeah, it's
Superhuman, that's what it is. What is that?
yeah, it's this awesome email platform. It just makes it makes sending and processing emails really quick. It's interesting because it's it's all about like micro interactions, right? So they make the process of like sending an email, you just click enter, and like that may seem really small, but it saves you so much
Big.
over the course of the day. I like live in my email inbox, so
Okay.
the small things really end up mattering.
Okay. Well, sorry, I've had a couple sidebars there, but I think this has been a phenomenal discussion, as was our last one. I think it's very cool to see what you've been doing, to hear how the platforms come along. I am curious, any other, because I know last time we were talking about some of the capabilities of what you could send through text. Has any of that continued to evolve?
Oh yeah. So you can now send images, GIFs. We're working on the ability to send videos and audio files within the next, I think, like few weeks,
Okay.
which is sweet. So yeah, it's been I think I got a text, an Aris text message recently where the image was like Tom Hanks's face, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So like definitely makes it the learning a lot more engaging. But yeah, so it's been cool what people are doing with sort of the new features.
Okay. So with that, and I know we've only got a couple minutes left, so I don't need to open up another one. But with the video and audio, is one of the things that you have to consider with that, with people who are, obviously part of your solution, part of the vision is to reach people without data plans. Texting, video, and audio probably starts to creep in on that, or does it not?
Yeah, so we use like the MMS protocol. So it ends up where we're able to send short video files and short audio files without encroaching on data.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So it'll be a time cap type thing. Maybe you'll
Yeah,
be the inventor of TikTok for business,
who
right?
knows? That'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the inventor of nano learning and TikTok for business. That's your next one.
It's a double threat. Yeah.
No, I'm setting the bar high for you. So one final question that I'd love your take on, or just to hear some of the things. And Charles is asking this. I know it's always a question that people bring up. Is in terms of, as people are creating some of this content, they're rolling this content out differently. How are you seeing people measure? Are there some measurements that are coming back, other than engagement, things like that, that you're seeing come out of this, that you're going, wow, we didn't really expect this to be an impact, or we did expect it and we met it?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent and super important question. So again, it's different for every course, right?
Yeah.
The metrics, the desired metrics are a little bit different. Generally, we find is that cost savings is really significant, right? First off, because you're saving a lot of employee time,
Yeah.
and so that ends up adding up very quickly. Especially if your employees have if their time is super valuable. And then we've seen a lot of really unexpected results as well. A mindfulness course ran over Aris simultaneously saved the company a lot of money, but employees reported feeling much happier and much more grounded at work,
Hmm.
30 and 60 and 90 days out, which was unbelievable.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then in terms of other business metrics, both the costs to create e-learning content, the time that it takes to create e-learning content, has both of those have significantly decreased. And then in terms of more positive business metrics, We have had, and again, we founded this thing in September, so it's difficult to do long-term tracking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have found that there's been some really, really amazing business results too, with sales teams becoming more competent, more cohesive, and with onboarding employees feeling like they're ready, like more ready to get started with their work.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I think right it's I think a lot of times we struggle with this area because people are looking for like what are the top 10 business metrics, and it's like they don't exist, right? On a course by course level, you're gonna be evaluating different things. But I think one of the things that you brought up that is one we should never overlook is productivity, right?
Yeah.
How much time are we wasting on things, because that is a quantitative, right? If we can quantify, we went from this to this and maintained, we did not degrade the value of what we did. That is a tangible business metric. So appreciate that one. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me again. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation as I did last time, and I'm sure this won't be our last. Thanks everybody. Love all the comments that have been coming in. Appreciate you joining the conversation and the dialogue I've been watching off to the side, happening along the way. I wish you the best rest of your day and a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Awesome.